Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller here with your Sana Q&A Mondays. I've got another question here. This person says, thank you for your videos. I was in a 14-year relationship with a narcissist and have 2 young children with him. Obviously, the no contact policy is impossible. So how does it work when you have children in joint custody with the abuser? So in this case, when you have children, as you said, you can't be no contact entirely. No contact is ideal. No contact works for people who don't have children, for people who are not working in an area where their boss or their coworker is a narcissist. They can't leave immediately. Somebody who is a neighbor who's a narcissist, they can't move immediately, right? In one of these situations where you're stuck for now or for a period of time. When you're co-parenting with one of these abusive types, it is going to be a lifetime of these lessons, like a lifetime of boundary lessons. So since you can't be entirely no contact, you want to use what's called gray rock technique. And you can find a lot of information about this online. But gray rock technique is essentially about being boring, uninteresting, unopinionated. Essentially, you don't want to look like some kind of shiny, bright object full of drama that the other person can come in and start manipulating, right? You want to just appear that your life is boring, there's nothing interesting going on here, nothing to see. When you talk to this person, you don't have strong opinions about things because you know how it is. You have this opinion, they take the opposite. You have this opinion, they take the opposite. They have no real opinion on things. They just want to take the opposite of your opinion so they can get you into this twisting, exhausting, mental spin of an argument. In the case where you are parenting with this person, the gray rock communication means you don't talk about anything but the kids. When you're picking up, where you're picking up, the event he has at school, the sports event she is going on, like whatever the things are about the kids and anything to do with the kids that you have to talk to this person about as co-parents and according to your custody agreement, according to the family court's agreements, right? Anything having to do with the kids, you don't owe this person anything more than that. You have to talk about the kids because you have a legal agreement. You have to honor those agreements, but you don't have to talk about your personal life. I would never, ever, ever share anything about your personal life ever again with that person, ever. Sharing is a boundary. It's an important boundary because if you give that person information, they can and will use that information against you. Anything you say. If you share your happiness, what are they going to do? They're going to try to make you feel like shit. If you share that you're feeling sad or down or upset, what are they going to do? Kick you when you're down, right? They know how to do that. They love doing it. They're master manipulators at that. Do not reveal any personal information, who you're dating, what your work life is, what your friend's life is, nothing. If you mention that you're going to be unavailable, don't tell them what you're doing. Don't tell them you're going out with your friends or a new date or whatever. Just, I have plans. I'm busy. That's it. You don't say anything more. You don't owe them anything more. All you owe them is that custody agreement and the agreement that you have with your kids to honor that, to let them have the kids when they're supposed to have the kids according to the court documents, to have whatever communication you need to have around the finances for the kids and the events for the kids and this and that. And that is it. Nothing more. Do not allow this person into your home again. Okay, I don't know what your agreement is on how you exchange the kids, but I would probably set up some kind of agreement where you make the boundary of your home your sacred space. I would never ever allow them into your home. Maybe that means not even allowing them on the steps outside your home, that you'll exchange the kids, out in the front yard, at the driveway, at the cars, in a public place. However you want to work out that agreement, do not allow that person into your home ever again, even if that was a home that you shared together. Don't ever walk into their home again. That's their private space. Don't walk into there, right? Let them have their private space and then honor and protect your private space. Have no other communication with that person other than the kids. Nothing else. I would keep things in writing. A lot of parents talk about this, you know, and again, I'm not a parent. I never had to deal with this. This is how I would handle the situation if I were in your situation. This is what I read from a lot of other people who were parents and recommending, you know, strategies that worked is, you know, not to have any other communication, to keep it in writing. You know, they talk about, you know, I think a lot of custody agreements, and you'll need to check with your state and your legal representative, a lot of them say like there has to be one channel of communication, whether it's like an email or a phone or something like that. Just there has to be at least one channel of communication. So if it's possible, keep the communication written, text or email. That way it's in writing. If there's ever any issues, you have a paper trail. You can take that to your legal representative. That can be taken to family court. Everything that they're saying on the phone, you may not be able to prove unless you have some kind of call recorder. You need to find out if your state is one of the states that is a one-party, what's the terminology? One-party consent or both-party consent, something like this, meaning one-party consent means only one of the two people being recorded knows that they're being recorded. That means you know you're recording the conversation because you have a software on your phone that anytime the phone rings, it's automatically recording the phone conversation, and that person doesn't necessarily need to know if your state is one of those one-party consent or however that the terminology goes. Apparently there are some states where both parties have to give consent in order for that to be used in a court of law. If that's the case, it's not going to work for you if he doesn't know that he's being recorded on that phone call. So I would investigate that in your state. I would talk to your attorney about that and find out from, you know, your legal representative, and then figure out which way of communication is going to work best for you and set it up that way. And then don't address anything that that person says that has anything other than to do with your kids. You know, even if they throw in some zingers and some digs at you, don't get caught in the self-defense. It's going to be really hard. You're going to want to go defend yourself. And that's only going to open you to an attack. It's only going to open you to them twisting your thing up and attacking you and making you feel like crap and making you doubt yourself. Don't give them the opportunity. Just completely dismiss it and only address the communications with the kids. There's a woman named Kim Saeed. I recommend checking out her website, letmereach.com. She wrote a book called How to Do No Contact Like a Boss. She brings this up because she's a mother. She has kids and she shared custody with a narcissist or some other cluster B type. She gets it. She knows what it is. She has some awesome tips on this. I would check that out as well. She mentioned something about having like a monitored email. She and this guy, you know, the father, were only communicating, I think, through this certain email address about whatever custody issues with the kids. And either she was having, I think she was having a friend or professional, someone else first read the email, right? Before she even had to look at it, they would read the email and they would decide if there was anything in there that was valid that had to do with the kids at all, or if it was just a bunch of his attempts to try to manipulate her and twist her and, you know, cause her to start defending herself and getting involved in these conversations and blah, 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 right? So they would screen the emails first for, you know, anything that was pertinent relating to the kids, and everything else that wasn't, they just got rid of, or they put in some file that she never even had to look at. So she didn't have to get triggered every time he tried to like poke at her, you know, and create some kind of response from her. So you might consider something like that. Check out her book, check out her website, because, you know, she's like you, she's a mama. She had to deal with this kind of situation. And then I would look up the gray rock techniques. You can learn more about that too. You know, just be boring, uninteresting, unopinionated, and only talking about the kids in this situation. This is like a lifetime of boundary lessons for you. You know, like they say, well, until the kid's 18, right? But it doesn't stop there really, because then there's college maybe, or weddings or whatever, and there's going to be financial stuff, and there's going to be like, well, what happens when an event happens? Do both parents go? Does one parent go and not the other parent? And how are you going to deal with that? And it's really going to be a lifetime like that with this person. So understand that for whatever reason, you have signed up for a lifetime lesson in boundaries, and that's where your major work is going to be right now, is learning boundaries, is setting healthy boundaries for yourself, setting them without guilt, not feeling shame about having those boundaries, and not allowing him to manipulate you and impose or violate those boundaries, and figuring out what works best and how to deal with him the best. And what are techniques that you find that work the best just to keep him away. And you'll see how things go. And recognize that when you set new boundaries, the immediate reaction is going to be he's upset, and he's going to try to impose his will and violate your boundaries, or guilt trip and shame you into thinking that you have no right to have those boundaries, or make you feel small or whatever. Resist the temptation to get into any argument about that. Completely resist it. And if you feel like you're just dying to defend yourself about whatever it was he said, go journal about that instead, or go call your best friend or your sister or whoever and tell them about that instead of engaging with him. Don't give him that, because you're just going to give him ammunition. And if he finds that he can't get it from you, he's going to have to go somewhere else for that drama. He's always going to be trying to get it from you because there's always going to be this connection with the kids. But you're going to get better and better at those boundaries, because every time you set and enforce that boundary, you get stronger. Your self-worth and your self-respect goes up. You get more confident. It starts to become so much easier to set boundaries than it was before. And recognize that boundaries is a lesson that we learn because someone crossed the limit. We often don't know when and how to set a boundary until someone crosses a limit that we didn't know we had, right? So boundary lessons are learned that way. They're learned the hard way. And don't beat yourself up if you learn more and more of these boundary lessons along the way, because you probably will. So look at it as an opportunity to learn something, and then figure out what you can learn from that experience so that you don't repeat that same mistake next time, because then it becomes a learning experience and not a mistake, right? And like I said, boundary lessons are like that. We make mistakes, right? We didn't realize there was a boundary there, or we didn't realize that we weren't upholding the boundary, or we let the person shame us or guilt trip us or otherwise impose or manipulate us to change the boundary. And then we felt awful because, of course, the person hurt you. So keep practicing your boundary lessons. I would study that kind of stuff primarily, how to set boundaries, how to do the gray rock technique. Check out Kim Saeed's book, How to Do No Contact Like a Boss, and be a boss of your boundaries, right? And remember that there's a bigger picture here, right? It's not just about you, it's about your kids too. And when they see you setting healthy boundaries as an example, you're setting a healthy example for them. You're leading by example for your kids, because they're going to have a lot to overcome. Maybe you were raised by a narcissistic parent. Maybe this is a pattern that's been with you for a lifetime. Now you're realizing what it is, and you're starting to heal yourself, right? And then as you heal yourself, you offer the opportunity to your children to heal themselves, because they were exposed to those same patterns, with their parent who is a narcissist or a sociopath or borderline or whatever cluster B, personality they have. And they're going to have some healing work to do too. But recognize that you can be an example. You can lead by example. You can be that person in their life that helps them heal from that. You can make up for not protecting them or not standing up for them and yourself until this point. It's not too late. And it's almost like you have to put your oxygen mask on first, right? Even when you're on the plane, when those oxygen masks come down, they tell you put it on you first and then the kids, right? Because if you pass out trying to put that mask on the kid, you're not there, right? You're not going to be there to protect them, to take care of them. You got to take care of you first. And that starts with your boundaries. And then you're setting that example for your kids, and you're protecting your kids in that process. And as you're healing yourself, you're giving your kids permission to see that within themselves, to recognize those same patterns. You're giving yourself that ability to see what's going on with them. And if you're seeing that your kids are really struggling with this, I wouldn't hesitate to get them into therapy. Find a therapist who gets it, a therapist who understands these dynamics of narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, of PTSD caused by abusive relationships, someone who specializes in that, so that they can get help, so they don't have to carry these patterns with them long into adulthood like you and I did, right? Because the younger they are, the sooner they get help, the better. That way they don't have to live like that the rest of their lives. I'm sending you a big hug.